We're looking at our order business cards workflow. We're having some issues with it, and we'd like to double check and see how it's working. This is a real difference between the SharePoint Designer environment and the Visual Studio environment. Visual Studio and many other development environments have the ability for you to step through a process, to actually say, let me look at step 1 and see what happens, step 2, and so on. We don't have that ability here in SharePoint Designer. We don't have a step-through debugger. But we do have the ability to write to a history log so that we can go back and see what's happening in our workflow. Please remember that we had the settings for that history out here on our settings page. We created them early on. And so now when we go back to the editor, we can write to that history log. And it's as simple as adding an additional action. So if I know, for example, that my workflow is working fine, my chargeback's working, my delivery date's working, and this email is actually being received, but I'm having a problem someplace in here, what I'll want to do is add some logging that I can use to be able to determine where I am in the workflow and where it's actually stopping. So I'm going to go to the core action log to history list. And at this point, I'm going to add some message. So I might want to add something that ties it back first so I can identify which item in the order business cards list it's dealing with. So I'm going to create a message using the string builder, and I'm going to say that my step is notify order received. Okay? But I also want to know what the item is. So before I have the step even, I'm going to add a lookup from the current item that's going to let me get right back to it, and that is my name. And this is the end of this particular step, so it would be complete. So I'm going to log whatever the name of this order for business cards is, step, notify order received. Say OK. Now, if I'm thinking that my problem is someplace right in here, I'm going to go ahead and send another log entry in exactly the same way. So log to history list, log this message, use my builder, go grab my current item's name, say OK, put a dash, because these are going to appear in the list, so I'd like them to be very, very similar, right? That way when I sort the list in order, it will work well. And the step here is complete printing. By logging these items to my workflow history list, I can simulate the kind of step-by-step debugging that I would have in some other development environments. So now when I go through, and if I really am not certain where I want to look for problems in a particular workflow, I can go ahead and log after every step, and it will be really easy then to read the logs and say, yep, the chargeback worked, the delivery date worked, the notify order worked, oops, it stopped here, so my problem is here in this step. That's the kind of thing you're looking for. If I know that my issue isn't in the 2 calculation steps, then I can just stub a couple of these different logs in. In the next movie, I'll show you where to find your logs and how to read them.